Circumstance does not make the man, it reveals the man. I think it was Edgar Allan Poe who actually said that. I was listening to one of Wayne Dwyer's recordings, and I was like, that's an interesting statement right there, isn't it? It's like, I think we really, really saw that during the pandemic, if I'm honest. But I think it also shows, like, in times of crisis, which way do we tend to go? You know, it's like, it's really obvious. Like, we had an earthquake here years ago that was really quite prevalent. Some people might know about it. It was in Christchurch. And it was just amazing to see how many people came together and really just, went all out. Like here in Queenstown, we were doing things like, collecting food and blankets, and it was just a big call out. And there were people who were driving through the night with, literally truckloads, absolute truckloads of blankets and pillows and food and water, and people just, it was absolutely moving. It was wow, it's like, geez, it gave me reassurance knowing that the people out there like that who will come together to absolutely help you in a time of crisis. I mean, that was a massive, it really affected Christchurch in a big way. There was a lot of, post-traumatic stress afterwards, and a lot of uncertainty, of worry about, loved ones because the comms went down. So there was a big issue around that circumstance, wasn't there? And it's interesting how it reveals the true side of nature, because I have that propensity to lean towards how can I help, but not everybody does. And there was a certain adjustment that was required, if I'm honest, because I noticed how, dare I say, I would, at the time, I thought perhaps complacent or dismissive. And it worried me. I was like, there was one particular person that I remember, and I had assumed that there was a thought pattern along the same as mine, which was that, empty out the cupboards with all the stuff that you don't normally eat, be it tins or whatever, water, the whole shebang, any old blankets, etc., that you could donate. And I was going to take them through to where the trucks were being loaded up for them to go through to Christchurch. And I had contacted this one lady. She's a Kiwi. And so I naturally just assumed, wow, this person would do exactly the same. Like, they would give and they would donate. Wouldn't have a bar of it. Just wouldn't have a bar of it. Like, nah, it's got nothing to do with me. Didn't affect me. Didn't affect my family. I'm hanging on to my food. I'm hanging on to my blankets. And I was like, even a tin of spaghetti, anything. And it was an outright no. And I was like, wow, So it revealed the man, the woman in that particular instance. And there is that I don't know, it's like, I question if is this, I think it's a learned thing, because I think by nature, if you look at how children play, there's no color, there's no barriers, there's no discrimination, there's no, you're not good enough, there's no, I've got more money than you've got. That comes later, doesn't it? All of that, that scarcity mentality, more for us, less for them, not enough for everybody to go around. All of that is conditioned. Whereas if we actually go back to our roots, it's in our actual core of our being to be connected, to be supportive, to be there for others. And it's actually a learned pattern not to, for whatever reason, And look, there's no right or wrong about it. It's just that it was an observation of like, oh, wow, I had an expectation that wasn't met, which was, I just assumed everyone thought like I did. And then I was surprised when I found out that actually not everybody does. And it was compounded for me that you know, I, as a foreigner in New Zealand, because, you know, I wasn't even a New Zealand citizen at that stage, was more, you know, I was out there wanting to help. I'm not trying to say that I'm, you know, better than, and etc., etc. It was just obvious to me that I would have thought that being in your own tribe, you would want to look after your own tribe, which is what in the old days, if you look back through history, it was all about that. It's like protecting the tribe, looking after the tribe, being one with the tribe. And circumstances reveal those cracks in the social network, dare I say, of perhaps, is this how we want our society to be moving forward? Is this the way that we, you know, just look after yourself, me, myself, and I, the Holy Trinity shoes? If you haven't watched that video, go and have a look at it. If we have a propensity for teaching our kids to be like that, what does that mean for us as on a bigger connected societal level further down the track? And it does concern me in a way, if I'm honest, like with all the level of pressure and expectations and social superficiality, if I can be brave enough to say that, and I've said it, so there you go, I'm clearly brave, is that it fractures that unit even more. And it's a question mark for me. You know, I think it comes down to probably how we're actually brought up. Whereas our innate source is actually to be one, to be connected. If you go right back to inner child stuff that I actually do, at some point the person realizes that there is more to us than this body, that we are. I know it sounds quite esoteric and this won't work for everybody, and I get that. You know, we're at different stages of our learnings in our life here, in our journey here on earth. So when you're ready, you'll get it. But when you really get that you're literally spirit in a physical form, and that spirit is actually connected to no thing, which is also one thing. There's more. In previous videos, I've spoken about how, you know, there is more no thing than there is something, and that we actually came from no thing to become something, and we go back to no thing, and that no thing, I hope you're keeping up with me here, is actually one united thing. It's a united energetic force, an energetic field. Now, some people might call it God or Buddha or Ra, or, you know, whatever your label is for that energetic field. That quantum field is where we all come from, which is one. So this flawed societal training of keeping us separate is concerning, you know. And I think with all the gadgets and all the devices and all the dare I say, you know, like, you know, social stuff that comes on, the pressure to be more focused on the physical form than the non-physical form is flawed in itself. It's a fallacy, because eventually at some stage this all falls away and we go back to being a nothing. So it's quite interesting, because I find that, you know, I love that saying, because it really was, circumstance reveals how, in my world, how connected that person really is, how emotionally, would I say stable? I mean emotionally, I guess more socially attuned to recognizing that there is something more than ourselves, that we aren't separate, that we're not, the physical form is not eternal, the energetic form of us is. When you get all that, you come from a different place of operating in your life. You know, when it comes to a disaster or a circumstance that shakes the world, it reveals the true nature of the person, doesn't it? And it's like, I quite often find the ones that, you know, have all those fractures and those split offs or whatever, quite often have undealt with trauma, have learned social, I was going to say skills, but I don't think it's a skill. It's a social imprinting, and conditioning, whether it is conducive to you or not, is left unquestioned. And I think we're getting to a stage now where, there's so much talk about this consciousness movement, and it's like the humans are going to go through a new consciousness awareness evolutionary phase. Like, we've gone through so many evolutionary development phases in our lifetimes, in Earth, since Earth has begun. And I think, I was like, well, yes and no, but how long will it take for that to happen? And I think when we start questioning stuff like this, you start going, do you know what, that is so valid. Do I want to be that person? Do I want to be that person who isn't there when needed, who isn't there for others in my tribe, who isn't there for my own tribe? They might be there for their own tribe, but some aren't even there for their own tribe, and that's all. There's question marks around why is that so. So it's a deep topic, but it all starts with that one phrase of Edgar Allan Poe's, which is, the circumstance reveals the man. And so whenever I see someone and I have a reaction, my physical reaction happens, like I did in that instance with that woman, I wasn't really evolved enough, spiritually to question it. I was abhorred by it. I couldn't believe it at the time. And so, of course, I went down my track of making her wrong and I'm right and, I can't believe it, and putting her down and all of this sort of thing. But really, it was just a recognition now that I see her. It's just like, well, she's just got undealt with trauma. She's got learned patterns that haven't been unlearned. She's just got, there's no right or wrong in it. She wasn't trying to be unpleasant. She was probably thinking, well, yeah, there probably is going to be a scarcity now. I probably have to hang on to food for my own family. I don't know, but before I would have judged, now I would go, that's interesting. I wonder what your lessons are in this lifetime that you could learn should you choose to. And she either will or she won't. I haven't seen her for years. Don't know if she has or if she hasn't. Has it changed? Some will get it, some won't. Some will learn those lessons, some won't. Some will learn all their lessons plus some won't. But that is just their journey. It is, I always go on about, your shoes, your path, your way. This is what I'm talking about. Is like when we get to a point where we go, well, is that a path I really want to be on? Do I want to be like that? Do I not want to be there for my tribe, for my people, for my family, for myself, for the greater good? Is that really what I want to be? And if we can start questioning that, or helping others to question that in a kind way, in a way that they are receptive to actually thinking about it rather than using it as a judgment statement. If we can get past that whole thing of like, that's interesting, I have a different reaction to that, and be the observer of it without reacting to it. And it's hard because even now sometimes I have reactions. I mean, I've had a reaction recently to something and I was like, see, I'm still learning. We don't get it all right. We just don't. There's always going to be something, and you think you've got it cracked, and then something else comes along and you're like, okay, there's clearly still some work to be done. Hey, so yeah, I just wanted you to have a little think about that, and just maybe there's something in your life where you can go, wow, hey, do you know what, that did reveal a part of me that perhaps, I could work on. And then ask yourself, am I brave enough to work on it? Maybe you need some help to work on it. Might be a coach or a good friend who's awakened. It might be a spiritual leader. You can go to whoever it is that's going to help you crank that door open a little bit more to get you onto a path you actually want to be on. And then when you see someone walking on a path and you get a reaction, and the circumstance, like I did, like with that lady that I was talking about, instead of having, observe the reaction that you're actually having and go, wow, I really got upset about that, or I had an angry thought about that, or an unkind thought about that, and that's revealing something about me, right? And that just shows that I need to do some work. So am I going to work on that or not? So just start becoming aware of your own reactions to what circumstances reveal the true essence of you, and also the same for others, and how to be less reactive to that, and how can we learn to be less reactive to that. So I hope you found that useful. Very interesting concept today. Quite enjoyed that. It's a little deep out there. I hope you stayed with me right to the end, and if you did, please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you. Namaste.